how far the distance from from the tendering ports to the restaurant, but I'm going to text Brian. So if you see Brian, he will know, is it 4 blocks to the right? Is it 4 blocks to the left? Do you have to get a cab? And if not, there's lots of people there. There will be representatives from Princess there. There'll be all kinds of personnel. Shore excursion people will be there at the dock when you arrive on land. My brother John and I will be on the first tender. We had to pull special strings and perform sexual favors to the crew members in order to get to the tender. But we make these kind of sacrifices. For you, our VIP clients, we make these kind of sacrifices. Anyway, so let's see what else. Then tonight is going to be very casual. I'm going to wear jeans to dinner. And some people won't even be at dinner. The dining room today will be half empty because a lot of people are just going to stay on shore. Okay, let's talk a little bit about tomorrow. The photo op it says the photo op will take place on deck 17, sports deck forward. It's going to be in that general vicinity, but depending on wind conditions, we might want to find a place in that general vicinity which is protected from the wind. If it's real windy, we don't want your picture with your hair going. So, but if it's a nice day with a little wind, we might want to be somewhere else. So we're going to be in that general vicinity. We're either going to be deck 17 forward, like it says. We might actually be deck 17 a little aft. We might also be on deck 16, either forward or aft. I mean, not aft, midship. We're not going to be aft. Forget what I said about aft. We might be midship. In fact, you really can't get to 17 on the elevator. In fact, people in the wheelchairs and things like that, if you can't do stairs, there is kind of a lift. Another possibility would be...
The elevator's right outside of Fusion, go to 18.
Right, but that's... Yeah, but that's aft, and it's I don't know if you can get there, but maybe you can. I haven't tried that out. But anyway, if you have trouble getting up to 17, then and you're in a wheelchair or something like that, Joe and Carl will come down to a deck to take your picture of deck 16. So we're very flexible that way. But look for don't if you don't see us immediately, just look around for us. We'll be somewhere in that vicinity. Okay. So when people get lost on this ship, like I can't find my wife. Where's my wife? Like she's got to be in about a quarter-mile radius. She can't really be that far. So anyway, all right. So let's see what else. Now here's the thing. We just, for those of you who got here early, we tested the DVD of tomorrow's episode. And it's a good episode. Oh, this is a good one. Spoiler alert, one less drug dealer in the world. But that happens at the very beginning of the episode, so it's not really a spoiler. So anyway, these gentlemen, Brian and Adam, they said that they have some interesting stories about that episode. So we're going to do that, and then we're going to bring up Brian and Adam. We're going to bring up Joe Kenda, because they always have to shorten it a little bit, and he'll tell a little bit, there's this other sub thing that happened, this other aspect that we didn't have time to talk about. And it did work. The AV gentleman, let's hear it for Luther here. He's been here all week. He's an AV specialist, and he tested the DVD to make sure it worked, and Rick and I watched it on his laptop last night. It's a very good episode. Anyway, let's see here. Okay, anything else? All right, so that's going to take us... one other important thing. That is the only activity that is actually open to anyone in the ship. So if you're meeting people on the ship and they're saying, I wish I had booked the Kenda aspect of this, you can say, you can be my guest tomorrow at 2:45 right here, but don't wait till 2:45. Get here by 2:30, because tomorrow there's a good chance it's going to be standing room only. In here, okay. Luther, if you remember, we need 2 microphones. If you could give, you got it. Okay, great. All right. So now I'm going to introduce our featured speakers, And this is a wonderful opportunity for you. And it's also an opportunity for them, because sometimes when they arrive in a crime scene, it's too late. And I'm sure that there has been times when they said, oh, I wish the victim didn't do this, or I wish they had done this other thing. And so this is their opportunity to share with you. And one of the things about these cruises, I've got to know all you on the phone. And for you, crime is not some academic, theoretical thing. How many people here have been a victim of crime? Raise your hand. Yeah. So, it's not a theoretical thing, or you've known some. How many people have known someone who's been a victim of crime? It's probably the whole room. So anyway, that's what we're here for. Okay. Do we have, I was just talking about some of these administrators. Do we have any questions about either the ship's activities, or what we're doing today, or tomorrow, or the Kenda Cruise activities? Yes. Okay. Left Behind, yeah. Spirited Away to Heaven, Left Behind. Okay, for lunch, it's at the Mango Deck Restaurant and Bar, and just ask anyone on shore. There'll be lots and lots of people on shore to let you know where. Cabo is not really a big place. It's not like Acapulco or anything like that. It's pretty compact. So, any other questions about anything? Yes. I'm sorry?
If you want, can you just get off the ship and walk around here?
Yeah, you can just walk around and explore. Absolutely. All right, so
I got a
at this point,
Jim?
I don't want to. Oh, yes.
I just have a quick. I noticed that the data roaming's on my phone, so everybody might want to check their phones if they
Even
don't have
if
an
your
international
da-
plan.
If your data roaming is on, yeah, you may want to put it on airplane mode if you.
Just watch out you don't get surprises in your phone bill.
Yeah, especially if you get a phone call. But if you don't answer your phone call, from what I understand, you don't get charged. You don't get charged just because your phone rings. But if you want to just be sure, you could go ahead and put it on airplane mode. That's what Joe Kenda does. All right, so now I would like to introduce these two gentlemen who are going to greatly reduce your chances of being a victim of crime. And you might want to share some of this information with your friends and loved ones. If you've got like an elderly mother or something like that who's not able to come on this cruise, you might want to share this information with them as well. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, I don't know how they want to work this, if they want to talk one at a time or together, but I'm going to let them, this is their show, not mine. I'm not the director, I'm just their host introducing them. So ladies and gentlemen, Officers Brian Davis and Adam Wilson from the Knoxville Police Department.
Well, good morning, everybody. Glad to see everybody out early and mostly bright-eyed. All the people with hangovers are not
Everybody's brought out of you.
So-
Look at these people over here.
Are there people up there that aren't so bright-eyed?
Not at all.
I'll talk to this side of the room then.
It's the party crew over here.
So we're gonna talk. This is a large classroom right here. We got all the way over here to all the way over here. It's all good. We won't try to consolidate you. We thought about doing that.
And we're going to move around. We may walk up around. I don't stand behind that, so I'll be up around here, maybe pointing you out to ask you a question.
So I'm guessing that most of you were here yesterday when we had our panel, but we'll kind of do a little self-introduction. My name is Adam Wilson. I'm a 17-year veteran of the Knoxville Police Department. I worked 7.5 years in patrol, 2+ years in a plainclothes street vice detail, about 5.5 years in the academy teaching new police officers. So my training style today, I'm going to treat you kind of like I treat a police class. So I may be a little crass. I'm going to try to keep the police language to a minimum, right? And I'm not going to make you do push-ups. So we're good?
Maybe.
And then the last 2.5 years I've been in high schools. I've been a school resource officer working with high school kids in Knoxville. So that's me. I've got a wife. I've got 4 lovely children. one grandchild as of last Monday. So, pretty happy about that. He is super cute. I didn't know that I would like him so much. People warned me. They said, "Look, you're gonna have this grandchild, and it's gonna be a whole different world." And I'm like, "Yeah, boo, whatever. I've got a dog that I love. It'll be, no, it's pretty cool." So that's me. Brian, tell them about you.
I will. Good morning. My name is Brian Davis. I've been with the Knoxville Police Department for 26 years, and it feels like 26 years. Since my time at KPD, I've done just about everything. Started off in patrol, worked that for about 8 years, moved to an organized crime position. I did undercover work for about 6 months. There I moved to the violent crimes unit, where I did rapes, robberies, murders, homicides, officer-involved shootings for about 5.5 years. While doing that detail, I was sent to the Department of Defense Polygraph Institute, Fort Jackson, South Carolina, where I went to the polygraph school, did that for about 4 years, in addition to major crimes. There I was transferred over to the Family Crimes Unit, where I did domestic violence and child fatalities, child homicides. Then transferred out of there back to patrol, where I became a supervisor, and now I'm currently in the property management unit. Basically, we house and store all the evidence that our department brings in, ever. So right now we have almost 60,000 items that I'm in charge of, to include about $40 million in narcotics and over 12,000 guns. And remember, we're a small agency compared to New York, Los Angeles, things like that. So it gives you an idea of the amount of evidence that we have to keep in order to prosecute these cases. My educational background, I've got an associate's degree in management and a bachelor's degree in management from a little school in Tennessee. Also an instructor in interview and interrogation, child homicide, and driving. So that gives you an idea of where we're coming from. And what we wanted to do today is to kind of informally let you know what you can do to help yourself to not see us in a working capacity. I mean, usually when folks see officers or see the police, I'll say police, sorry. When they see us, they're either extremely ecstatic or extremely pissed off. They're really glad you're there, or why did you stop me? I wasn't speeding. So we understand that we don't want you to become the victim of any unfortunate event. And Jim took a little brief survey of how many folks, again, were the direct victim of some kind of crime. Okay? So what, about half the room of it? About that. How many folks of those victims were the victim of a property crime? In other words, you had property taken, but you weren't assaulted, you weren't threatened, you just had your stuff taken. Okay? And how many other folks were the victim of an assault or any kind of use of violence or anything like that? Okay? Now, what did we notice with that? Those numbers were what? Lower than the property crimes. So what we want to let you know is your chances of being a victim of a violent crime pretty low. Are pretty low. Your chances of being a victim of a property crime go up dramatically what you thought. So we're going to touch on that here in a minute.
So let's talk about some definitions of some crimes, because we get a lot of crimes mixed up when we talk about them. Well, we don't, because we got taught what they are. So burglary, robbery, theft, are those all the same thing, and how are they different? Well, I'll tell you. Okay. So a burglary involves unauthorized entry into something, a building, a home, a car. Those are all burglaries. Someone entered or broke the plane, we like to talk about, so they could stick 2 fingers in an open window. They don't have to break anything. They entered the property without being authorized to do so in order to commit another crime, a vandalism, a theft, an assault, anything like that. That's a burglary. So when somebody says, my house got robbed, no, it got burglarized. Somebody came into your home and stole your sofa. Probably not. Probably a TV, right? So, how about a robbery? A robbery is when you possess something that someone takes from you with threat of violence or with violence. It's a robbery. So you've got your purse over your shoulder, and somebody comes up and grabs your purse, shoves you to the ground, and runs away. That's not a theft. It's not a burglary. It's a robbery. They've robbed you of your property. And then a theft can be, let's go with the purse on the shoulder again. You're in the supermarket, you've got your purse on the shoulder, and nobody's ever told you to not keep your purse open and to keep your purse in front of you. And so you didn't know to do that, and somebody reaches into your purse and essentially pickpockets you. It's a theft. You didn't even know that it happened. So it's a theft. A theft can occur in your yard. It can occur out in public. If it occurs from within the inside of your car, they steal your 8-track. Some of you have an 8-track. I know that. But they steal that out of the car. What have they committed? Burglary, because they had to enter your car to do that. So that should clear that up. So now when people misuse those terms, you can set them straight. All right?
And we will be assaulted.
I hope you're not assaulted.
Why is that important? We want you to understand the context of why these definitions can be important, because is robbery a greater offense than burglary, or is burglary a greater offense than robbery? Why? Because the threat of violence upon someone. Do I have to physically assault you to rob you? If I put my hands in my pocket, and you can't see, they're just fingers, I got a finger gun here, and I say, give me your money, what is that? Because of the intent to deprive you of that property, and also the perceived threat to that individual. It doesn't have to be a real gun. It doesn't have to be some kind of weapon. It's the perception, and that's important, because that's what's called the elements of the offense. In other words, to prove robbery, to prove burglary, to prove theft, there are certain definitions in the law that you have to meet. If you don't fit, if you can't prove one of those definitions, that person will be found not guilty. So let's relate this into a TV show y'all like. When Joe goes out to investigate a homicide, he knows in his jurisdiction what those elements of offense are. To prove murder, to prove manslaughter. In Tennessee, we have second-degree murder. We have manslaughter, especially aggravated assault. So someone can be guilty of manslaughter, but not guilty of first-degree murder. The elements of the offense, the facts of that case, are what dictate to you as the investigator or the independent finder of fact, because that's what an investigator is. When you go into a crime scene, you don't take a judgment call. You look at the facts as they are, and impartially look at those facts to determine, was this crime committed? As hard as it may believe, when we show up on a scene, we do not take a side. What do you mean? You've got a victim right there. Maybe. Maybe not. You have a suspect right there. Maybe. Maybe not. You go where the evidence and the facts lead you. Now, part of the reason we're letting you know that is because what we talked about earlier. Property crimes are more prevalent than crimes against a person or crimes of violence. Why is that? Come on, wake up. Why is that? They're easier? That's good, I'll take that. What else? I'm sorry? More convenient? I'll take that. What else?
Better chance of getting away with it.
Opportunity to get away? These are all good answers. The short answer is most suspects or most bad guys are cowards.
True statement.
They're cowards because they don't want to confront you because they might get what? Shot. In Tennessee, yeah, you'll probably get shot. Or there is a witness. So most criminals are cowards. Something to keep in mind in crime prevention. don't give them an opportunity to make you a victim.
So let's talk about violent crimes. How do we prevent ourselves from being a victim of a violent crime? Percentage-wise, so the FBI gathers statistics. Anybody FBI in here?
I played one in Homicide Hunter.
Well then, just plug your ears. The FBI are a bunch of college dudes, right? Most of them have zero street cop experience. And so when we have to deal with them in the field, it's not good.
They have their own
people.
theme music when they show up.
They do. They open the door and the theme music starts, you're like, oh, it's the FBI.
Joe calls them the fruit and berry inspectors.
Fruit and berry inspectors. And there's a reason why there's a disconnect there. We're on the streets and they're not. They don't deal with people in the same way. They sit in an office, look at a computer, and make judgment calls and think of themselves as being very, very good at police work. Okay? But they do a good job. I said do, and I didn't mean to. They do a great job of collecting statistics. Now, I have an opinion about statistics. You can make them say whatever you want. So don't ever just believe the statistics. But they're useful. They are useful. The FBI collects data from local law enforcement. That data is not the same nationwide in the United States. So Tennessee's standards for collecting that information and sending it to the FBI is just a little bit different than, say, South Carolina or Georgia or Washington State. All states collect crime data differently, and they're not mandated to send that information. They do because it's helpful. So it's incomplete statistics. Tennessee changed the way that we collect that information, and it made us look like a horribly crime-ridden state. And I'll explain how this happened. In one state, well, let's just say Tennessee before we changed it. A burglary counted as one crime. Dude breaks in, steals a VCR, a TV, and a dog food bowl.
You dated yourself with a VCR.
I'm talking about back then.
He's trolling.
26 years, 17 years. So, I didn't even work on that one last night. So, that counts as one crime. It's a burglary. It's a residential burglary. So the state of Tennessee said, we're not getting the detailed information that we need. So let's change it. Now we count that as 4 crimes. A burglary and 3 thefts. So now what does that statistic look like when somebody's like, hey, I'd like to move to Tennessee. Let me look at the stats. Holy crap. Tennessee is full of thieves. No, we report crimes differently. It's just a difference of information. To my point, the FBI collects data and says that if you are not involved in drug crimes, you don't hang around with people that are involved in drug crimes, and you don't do bad things on a regular basis, you're probably not going to be a victim of a violent crime. There are exceptions. But that's a high percentage of people that are not likely to be the victim of a violent crime. Because if you're not a bad guy, you're not in the vicinity of those things. How many crimes do you think that you've worked where there was a true victim to a violent crime, aside from domestic violence?
Yeah, aside from domestic violence and aside from like the guy working in the convenience store gets robbed. Okay. Let's take home invasion. People spend thousands of dollars each year to secure their residence, to put cameras up, to put bars on windows, and have enough guns in there to start a war. Okay, cool. I'm all for being secure. And their main idea is, I don't want to be the victim of a home invasion because I saw in the news this guy in this suburban neighborhood had his door kicked in and was robbed and shot. Now let's think about this. Everyone in here is now a bad guy. We got some really bad guys. I want you to pick out a house to rob. Why would you pick that house out? Their lawn looks great. Therefore, they just have a lot of money. Or someone to mow their yard. In other words, what am I saying? Why would you pick out a random house to rob?
Because you know specifically something that's inside there that you want.
They're selling drugs. Of course. Why would I go into a house unless I could know I could get something that they wanted, such as money, guns, drugs? I heard jewelry. How do I know you have jewelry? Unless you I have a lot of jewelry. Or you advertise it on Facebook that you have a lot of jewelry. You put your address up there, which people actually do. Don't do that. That's bad. That's a tip. But what we're trying to say is that home invasion, you read about in the newspaper, that person was probably engaged in selling narcotics, laundering money, running numbers. Who here has a large amount of cash in their house right now?
I got $5.
We're going to work on our definition of large.
I got a VCR.
Got a VCR. Welcome to the 80s. Yes, ma'am.
In the event something happens, you can't access ATMs, you can't, in other words, it's a safety measure.
Sure. How do I know you have that? You just told me. But before you told me, I never knew.
Yeah, well, that's true, but
And so how do I know you have that in there?
Rumors on the street.
my question is.
But you got to tell somebody to be a room.
Yeah, but people talk.
See, what I'm asking you is, I found all kinds of places I can keep it. That's what I wanna know. Where is there a reasonably safe place in my home?
A safe? If you're going to keep cash, keep it safe.
Yeah, it's gotta be a heavy.
And I'm going to get a fireproof safe.
Yeah.
But my point is, and that happens. People do keep money, jewelry, cash in their house. I don't know that until you tell me. Therefore, I have no reason to kick your door in, put a shotgun in your face, and tell me, give me your money. Now, if I know you sell weed out of your house, and I know you deal in cash, and I know you just had some come in, guess what? I'm going to rob you. So your chances of being a victim of a home invasion go down drastically if you don't do bad things.
So we didn't define home invasion initially, right? So a home invasion is a burglary, right? Somebody's entering your home. The difference is a home invasion, you're home when it happens. So they're burglarizing your home and then they're robbing you, threat of violence, because you're home. Those crimes are 98%, 99% criminal against criminal. Shooting victims. I don't know that I've ever been on a shooting scene where it wasn't a bad guy that shot another bad guy. Now that to me is not a true victim. If you're a bad guy and you're in an argument with another bad guy and that bad guy shoots you because you're a bad guy, you're not I'm so sorry you got shot. You're a bad guy. It's what you do. That's what most violent crime, most shooting victims, when you look at all the numbers, that's the largest percentage.
Now notice he didn't say all. We're not saying all. There are incidents where violent crime occurs against random victims. That happens. What we want you to know is the statistics tell you you're more likely to be struck by lightning. So that's the mindset we want you to have. Now we're going to get into some active shooter stuff here in a few minutes. When an active shooter happens, what you should do, what you should not do, what is going to happen, what the police response is. But we want you to know, because people worry. They generally come up to us a lot of times, especially on these cruises and other places. What can I do to not be the victim of a violent crime? Because in episode 405, this lady was just walking her dog and she was killed. Unfortunately, we have to live in
That was 407.
Oh, I'm sorry. Unfortunately, we have to live in society. We have to interact with people. So there is the potential there Now, what's some things you can do to help yourself not be a victim? Number one, think. Our wives can attest to this. Whenever we go into a restaurant, whenever we go to any place we're going to sit down, and if you've seen Joe do, you'll see Joe do the same thing. Where do we sit, Adam?
Where we can see the door.
Why do we want to watch the door?
Because that's where the bad guy's going to come in.
All right. How many folks have memorized how many doors are in this building right now? How many doors are there? That don't look, you're cheating. 2 and where? Door over here, door over there, door right there, back there. Have you planned an escape out of this room if something bad were to happen already? If not, you messed up. We have. Every room I go into, every place I go, I want to know where the entrance, where the exits. How am I going to get out if I have to? Where's the threat going to come from? In other words, I want you to start thinking tactically. Have a plan to escape or protect or defend everywhere you are at every time. Some would call that paranoia. I would call it having a plan to stay alive.
Let's revisit the warehouse of information that is the FBI. So, the FBI also went out and they interviewed a bunch of criminals who had victimized true victims. All right, so they had robbed people, they had killed people, they had done awful things to people that were just random victims in crimes. And they asked them a few questions. One of those questions was, why did you pick that person? That's an important question to know, right? Why did they pick that person?
They look weak.
They looked weak. They were unaware of their surroundings. They looked like a victim. There's a saying that one of our past instructors, an old grizzled Vietnam vet that I absolutely love, named Van Buell. Buell would quietly walk about the classroom and pontificate on wisdom. And one of his wise things that he would say is, if you look like food, you will be eaten. That is the number one thing that you can do as an individual to avoid being the victim of a crime. Look like you know what's going on.
When we get off the port, are you going to be dressed like a tourist? Say yes.
Yes.
Is a tourist a potential victim?
Yes.
Why? You don't know where you are, you don't know where you're going, you're carrying cash. Right? If you get out in the middle of New York City, you're on Fifth Avenue, and you look at your phone map, and you start doing this, you have just told everyone, I'm a victim and I have money. I have credit cards on my person, and I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Do you ever see, anybody lived in New York City? Do you ever see a local do that? Never. They got a place to go, they're going. So my suggestion to you is pre-plan. Where you're going today, have some idea. Hey, we're going to the mango place, right? Ask one of these folks out there, try to plan. Where am I going to go? Have an idea where you're going. If you don't, walk up to the cab. Don't just start doing this. Don't look like a victim. And what he's saying is that is the number one reason why innocent victims are targeted. You look like an easy mark. What did I say earlier?
They're cowards.
They're cowards. They don't want to fight. They don't want anyone to put up any resistance. If you look like food, you will be eaten.
So, the other thing that is just, this goes back to being a kid, right? Try not to go places just by yourself. We're going to go places by ourselves, right? But if you're in a foreign place that you've never been before, be with somebody. That's just a good idea. If any kind of emergency happens, right? So, the buddy system. There's power in numbers. One person can be overpowered fairly easily unless they've chosen to exercise their Second Amendment in the United States, and then they have equalized themselves regardless of their stature. But the buddy system, go with somebody else. And then discuss with them the plan. What's the plan? What are we going to do if? You know what we do all day long? And we kind of learned this in the academy and through the FTO program. We what if everything. We don't talk about it, But I know Brian has what if 1,000 scenarios on this boat already. And he knows that I have too. And that's what he's talking about, that pre-plan. Thinking about the inevitable. What if something bad happens? What am I going to do? What you've done when you've done that inside of your brain, physiologically, you've created a small dirt road, maybe a footpath in your brain from potential event to how I'm going to handle it. There's a path. Now your brain waves, your electro thingy majiggers, explain it, you're a scientist.
Things in your head.
Your synaptic connections, right? So you're creating a trail that no longer has to be hacked away with a machete to get from one place to another. You've made the trail. The more you exercise that trail and think those thoughts, it will become what I like to refer to as a synaptic superhighway.
Yes, ma'am.
You brought up the subject of the Second Amendment, whether you guys thoughts on concealed carry.
We'll get to that later in the program. Now,
Go ahead. Yeah, no, you're on.
what he's talking about is having a plan, exercising through that. It's just like muscle memory. Repeat it over and over and over, you're going to do something quicker. If you start thinking tactically, if you start thinking situational awareness, who's around me, where am I at, what's going on, what could potentially happen here, the more you do that, the better you get at it. Now again, I'm not trying to make you paranoid, but I want you to live in reality. And reality today is bad things can happen at a school. Bad things can happen on this boat. Bad things can happen in the airport. The Kinder Cruise 2, it was in Fort Lauderdale. The day before, day after. Day after, what happened? Guy shot up the baggage claim, right? Where I was getting my baggage.
The day before.
The day before?
No, you were getting
Yeah,
your
get
baggage
that
the
for
day before.
Okay, I'm confused. We're both right. Yeah. That's right, we were on the boat. Yeah. I don't have the internet package yet. But so it can happen anywhere, and it's just a circumstance of time. If you don't pre-plan in your head, what are you going to do? Now let's address something. How many folks have a lanyard? If you have a lanyard, raise your hand. Okay. How many folks have a pen? Who has a pen? How many folks have a set of car keys on a keychain right now? Okay. How many folks carry a set of car keys on a keychain? Okay. How many folks have a cane? Okay. How many folks carry a pocket knife? Okay.
How about wear a belt?
Yeah. Who has a belt? What are those? Every single one is a weapon, if you're willing to use it. And we're going to get into mindset later on when we do active shooter, but what he's talking about is do not look like food. Understand that if your life is in danger, you don't have to sit there and let someone kill you.
So Brian talks about that sense of almost paranoia, which it isn't, but people look at us and go, you guys are paranoid. Maybe we are. But when you do this what if scenario in your mind and you build up this synaptic superhighway of thoughts of what will I do? What should I do? What can I do? It does a couple of things. If you feel fear, if you are afraid of what might happen, as soon as you start to plan, that fear starts to grow smaller. And the more and more confident you become in your ability to deal with an unexpected event, the smaller that fear is. And fear, if it controls you, is committing a crime against you. You're not meant to be afraid every day of your life. There are times to be afraid. Every one of us has been there. Every one of us will be there again. But every day is not the time to be afraid. Now that is not to say that fear is not a tool we can use, because it absolutely is.
Anybody ever take a polygraph? No? What a polygraph does is it measures the physiological response to a lie. And what that is, a lie is stress caused on the body. And what it measures is the flight or fight response, the physiological response rather, on your body. So you have an increased sweat gland activity, you have increased heart rate, you have increased breathing. That's what the polygraph measures. Now what he's talking about is fear is an emotion that's primal to us. You're going to feel fear, and it's going to have a physiological response to your body. How you maintain that or how you deal with that is key. It's important. Are you going to freeze? Are you going to run? Or are you going to fight? If you train something over and over in your mind, if you went through that scenario, you're going to respond better and could potentially save your life or someone else's life if you just give it a little bit of thought.
All right, so now we're not looking like food, right? Now we're thinking about what we're doing and we're planning ahead. And we're thinking when we walk into a building we've never been in before, we're checking for exits, we're looking at the people, we're trying to say, oh, that guy's suspicious. I'll keep an eye on him.
That's a
Right?
shady looking guy right back there.
Right.
I don't know if that's spotted.
So that's what we're doing. What else are we doing? We're paying attention to our fear response. Ladies, you have something that us men do not have.
Common
You
sense.
have, well, okay, so you have two things that other men do not have. You have a sense of understanding that goes beyond what your brain is recognizing and is, I don't know, but it's different.
It's magic.
You have a sixth sense, almost premonition-like. I want you to not ignore that. You've been taught to be polite and to be kind and to ignore those things. That is the gift of fear.
Gavin D. Becker.
Great book, right?
Yeah.
It's a book, Gift of Fear. If you haven't read it, you should get it. You will read it and you'll say, man, I was almost a victim 1,000 times. But you'll have an understanding of how your brain is working and how not to ignore that. Now, that doesn't mean we have to go overboard. But ladies, you're going to have a feeling that something isn't right. Don't ignore that. Just start paying attention. And maybe tell your husband, because guess what? He doesn't feel that. Because, I don't know if it's got to be how we're programmed. I mean, we're made differently. Our brains function differently, contrary to popular belief. Men have this sense about them where if something bad happens, I'll just charge it and do what I need to do. We'll fight it, kill it, slay the dragon when it comes. You ladies are like, hey, we need to do something different so we don't have a problem with the dragon. So don't ignore that fear. Don't ignore that. All right?
When we're talking about these things, again, we want you to understand that you have a lot of the tools, a lot of resources within you to not be a victim. You already have this program in you. You already have this intuition. You already have the ability to plan out your survival. So again, the main thing we want to go over is don't look like food. You won't be, and have confidence. Adam referenced an FTO program earlier. What that means is field training officer. So what we do is we train new officers that come out of the academy. In other words, we give you the book learning, and now we're going to apply it in a real world scenario, and you're monitored by an FTO. An FTO rides with them, answers calls with them, evaluates them, sees how they're doing. Because believe it or not, just because you go through the academy and you have a piece of paper doesn't mean you're a good officer. Yes, sir. We try. Again, men are already at a deficit anyway, so we have to give them advanced classes on it. But not everyone is cut out for that. So what I taught my trainees and my folks in the FTO program is have confidence. Have an air about yourself that says, I'm calm, I'm collected, and I'm in charge. Adam, who's in charge of this room? I am. I'm in charge of this room. You're in charge of this room. In other words, I'm allowing everything to go on. Because I've not acted upon it yet. I'm allowing it to happen. I want you to be confident without being cocky. What? Have you ever encountered someone who is so confident they're just, no kids?
An asshole.
There's that fine line to walk where you're confident and not just arrogant. And that's where I want you to live. In that era of confidence, because you're going to just destroy any image that you're weak, any image that you could be a victim of a crime, and any perception that someone will want to take advantage of you. And I don't care how old you are. I don't care if you have any kind of disability. It doesn't matter. If you're confident in yourself and you're confident in your ability, that shines through. And that's very important.
All right, let's touch base real quick on the active shooter bit. Active shooting events, are there more now than there used to be?
Yes.
You would think so, but you believe the media. No, there are not. The active mass shootings are down. They're significantly down.
Why is that? Why do you automatically have a perception that mass shooting events are on the increase? Media. Now, what does the media do?
Excites fear.
They make money. When we work on Homicide Hunter, that's called content. We are filling airtime, content. The media, any media, I don't care. Whatever channel you watch, that's none of my business. But whatever channel it is, has a duty to make money. And if you have your eyeballs on that content, you are making money for that station. And what did Kathy say earlier? If it bleeds, it leads. So if 5 people get shot in the projects who are dealing drugs, that is a definition of a mass shooting. But you won't hear about it. I did homicide for 5.5 years. If I asked the average Knoxvillian how many homicides we had, they would say a number that was extremely low because what? That poor guy in the middle of the projects who got shot over the drug deal doesn't rate the news. But that pretty blonde who got shot in the domestic in the fancy part of town is going to rate a massive amount of coverage. Now, right or wrong, one person's life is just as valuable as another. But right or wrong, that doesn't generate the local media money. So, statistically, there have been fewer mass shootings, but more shootings in places that would garner attention, if that makes any sense to you. And so what we want to do is tell you, if there's an active shooter where you are, what you should do. Do you think that might be useful?
Yes.
Now, in the active shooter classes we go on, we want folks to know that there's going to be a police response. When we respond to the scene of an active shooter and you're laying there shot, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go right past you. I'm not going to stop. I'm not going to hesitate. I'm not going to call you an ambulance. I'm going to walk right by you. Why? There's an active shooter. I have to eliminate the threat. When the officers respond on scene, I'm not going to wait for a SWAT team. I'm not going to wait for 6 or 7 guys with shotguns. I'm going to go in with what we got right then, right now. And we are going to eliminate the threat as quickly as we can. Well, that's well and nice for me, but what about you all? What should you do in an active shooter situation?
Yeah, get out. That's the first thing. So, the concept of recognizing, hey, what do gunshots in a building sound like? Anybody know? Anybody heard of it? Fireworks. That's what everybody says on the news. I thought it was fireworks. Somebody was practical joke. There was firecrackers going off. Don't assume it's firecrackers. This is that synaptic superhighway we're building, right? We don't think firecrackers anymore. That's not what we think. And if it turns out to be firecrackers, good for us. We didn't have to deal with a bloody shooting.
Hey, we just trained. We practiced.
We just did, just now. So run, get out. If there's a safe way to get out. Are you going to know the best way to get out? No, because you're not going to know where that dude is or dudette. right? Likely, statistically, it's a dude. So, is action now without a perfect plan better than a perfect plan 10 minutes from now? Absolutely it is. So you're going to try to get out.
You just misquoted Patton, but that's pretty good. I like my
I wasn't going to quote Pat. I'm not at that level.
Got it.
Right. Blood gets himself. So we're running, we're getting out, we're clearing out of the building. Are we concerned about people who are so scared that they're frozen and will not come with us? No, we're going to say, follow me, we're getting out of here. And they're going to say, I'm scared. And you're going to say, well, be scared here, I'm leaving. And you're going to go.
We're going to get our cell phone or purse. We're going to wait. I got to go get my cell phone. I got this crazy game of Candy Crush going on, and I'm on a high street. Okay, you laugh. You laugh. But how many ladies have went in to get their purse? Apply common sense at this point.
Absolutely. So now, if you run into a situation where you can't get out, you can't get out, what's the next phase? What do? You're going to hide, right? This is the critical game of hide and seek of your life, right? You're going to hide. Now, can you fit in a cabinet? Yes, I bet you can. I could, if I had to. You can hide in all kinds of places. So hiding, when somebody, do you remember playing hide and seek as a kid? All of us played it, right? Yeah. Did you only use your eyeballs to find the person you were looking for? No. No, what did they always do? They made noise, and you went to the sound of the noise. Be quiet. Silence your cell phone.
Yeah, let's talk about that. There's an active case in the school shooting where the person was hiding, and their mom saw what was going on and called her child, and the cell phone went off. Walk around with your cell phone on silent. Keep it quiet. You're not going to think about that when the time comes. What do we talk about? Pre-planning, getting ready. When Adam's talking about evacuation or getting out or running, where should these people go? Where? What door? The closest door to get out. Do you know where that is? For you folks, it's right there. For you, it's right there. Have a plan.
So we're getting out, we're hiding, and if it comes down to it, we're going to fight. Right? None of us want to inflict physical violence. None of us. Plenty of people like to inflict violence on others. Some for good reasons, some for sport. But most of us in this room, I would gather, would choose not to hurt someone if we could make that choice cleanly. These situations are not clean. So we're going to think of really cruel and unusual ways to pummel the life out of somebody that's trying to kill us. Because it's us or them. It's us or them. And that mindset and coming to that realization and accepting that and coming to a place inside of your brain and your heart and your soul is really important. You have to do that ahead of time. And not everything's going to work out perfectly, but you got to have that mindset. And that's going to give you confidence. And when you're confident, you're going to carry yourself differently. You will no longer look like food, and you will not be eating.
How many parents in here? How many parents? If someone threatened your children, threatened the life of your child, would you respond in a violent way, yes or no?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
That's usually no problem. But when people are confronted with violence upon themselves, they usually freeze. Oh, I don't hurt them. But when it's for someone they love, they'll gouge their eyes out. I'm telling you, Adam's telling you to have that same response in regard to yourself. Yes, ma'am.
As an SRO, what do you teach the kids in the school? We had an active shooter in our county.
Oh.
And they were hiding behind desks. And
I don't have the ability to teach my students what to do in an active shooter situation. I can only influence the school system's policy if I can do that. So in the school system, the school administrators, how many of them are prior law enforcement? Probably none. So how do they think?
Like victims.
Like victims and bureaucrats. What are they more afraid of? Somebody coming in and inflicting mass violence on one of the schools in the system, or a parent calling them and saying, "You scared my kid"? Yeah, they don't want to field those phone calls. But there are plans in place, and those plans keep getting better and better because there is an acceptance of responsibility to keep children safe. Well, we have armed guards guarding money, we've got armed guards guarding racehorses, we've got armed guards guarding all kinds of stuff. But when we talk about having armed guards in schools, people go, "Hey, that's a school, it's not a prison." Yeah, and it's full of the most valuable asset we have. The most valuable asset we have. And we want to shirk at putting somebody armed in the school that can address a problem that's violent.
What do you think about arming teachers or administrators?
I don't think that arming teachers and administrators is the answer, but I do think scraping all of the it is federal law, state law, blah, 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 to not be armed on this property, scraping all those signs off the school would stop active shooters in schools almost immediately.
Let's get into that. We were holding off kind of the end to talk about Second Amendment, handgun carry permits, and things like that. Let's go over the active shooter. You're in church. You're in a library. I don't care where you are. You're a handgun carry permit person. You got Roscoe on your side there. You got a Widowmaker. How often do you practice with that? Well, odds are maybe once a year to qualify, if your state has you qualify. But in reality, most states don't have you qualify other than once, so you probably don't qualify or shoot with it a lot. How familiar are you with that weapon? Can you load a magazine?
Yes.
If you even carry a magazine,
Yes.
blindfolded? Where do you carry? Do you carry your magazine the same spot every single time? Do you carry a spare? Do you carry the same holster with you every single time? Do you practice retrieving that holster or that weapon from that holster in a very rapid fashion under stress? Probably not. What kind of ammunition do you carry? Can you tell me how many grains it is? Can you tell me the manufacturer? Can you tell me the ballistic characteristics of that ammo? Is it going to overpenetrate? Is it designed to enter and tumble, or is it designed to go through and through? Is it a full metal jacket? Is it a hollow point? In other words, how much training do you have? Are you sure of your target? In other words, the threat is right here. I'm going to address that threat in front of me. I'm going to take 2 direct shots to the most center mass I can take, and then 1 shot to the head. I'm going to perform a failure drill. I'm going to eliminate this threat. Oh wait, there's 4 kids behind that. Oh well, sucks to be them. In other words, are you going to throw rounds down range and make sure you hit that target, that bad guy, and not the 4 kids behind it? Have you practiced that scenario? Have you went through that scenario in your mind? Have you trained? Probably not. As an officer, if I respond to someone and I see someone shooting and all they have on is a t-shirt and shorts and all I have is an active shooter situation, guess who I'm going to shoot? The person with the gun. I don't know you're the good guy. All I know is you've got a gun. And I will place 2 direct shots to your body, 1 to your head. Without question. Excuse me, are you the good guy? Okay, cool. So let's get into that. If you're going to carry, I tell you, you have the responsibility to train. You have the responsibility to know what you're carrying. You have the responsibility to practice. You have the responsibility that you take on that liability of your round when it leaves the weapon. You are responsible for it and all the damage it can cause.
And if you do that, we love you. Because you make our job easier.
So in that scenario, if I've got a beat on somebody, how do I tell you I'm the good guy to
Well, as soon as we're on scene, that gun needs to be on the ground and your hands need to be where we can see them. And then just follow all of our instructions. Even if it seems weird, don't try to explain to us who you are, because we're not going to shoot you or do violence to you unless you don't do what we tell you to do in that situation.
And I'm going to say in a very loud, aggressive manner, probably with a lot of words that are not nice, what I want you to do with that gun. And again, can that be a scary situation? Yes. And what are you liable to do? Freeze. don't freeze. In other words, you better train, have a plan. You better have a plan, you better practice. If you're going to accept the responsibility that is your right, then you need to exercise that right with caution, with care, with training, and understand what comes with that.
Not everybody needs to carry a gun. Some people aren't cut out for it. Some people can't take a life if they needed to. I get that. That's fine. I'm not one of those people. I decided a long time ago that I would be a protector. And if that meant that I had to do violence on another to protect someone, I would do that. It's just a decision that all police officers have to make. And in the academy, we weed out the people that can't make that decision. Because you depend on us. You depend on us to be that person that can take that shot, that can fight that bad guy in the street when the gun's not appropriate and it just becomes a brawl. You pay us to tase people too, which is kind of fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. Tasers are magical, wonderful instruments.
It's like a magic wand. You know the modern 70s van with the rainbow farting unicorn?
Yes,
the wizard?
I've got that. The
Yeah.
wizard hat. Yeah, the
Needs
sword.
a taser in hand now.
Hell yeah.
Get rid of the sword, taser.
Yeah, awesome.
Wizard with a taser.
I'll tell you, it's something everyone should taser someone in their life at least once. It's the most joyous experience you can ever have. Do it again, Daddy. Do it again.
You know what? I saw it done once and so many residents.
Depending on your face.
Now, he got caught out of his truck because the wall was wrong. He climbed out and he laid on the ground with his hands all like this. They tased and they just went like a taste and something. They had no business tasing him.
In individual cases or scenarios we can talk about later, and we'll get into that. And there may be a reason you just don't know or did not on video, but we'll get into that.
Raise your hand if you're getting anything out of this, because we're kind of getting to a point where we're kind of. I hope that you are. I'd like to open it up for a couple of questions. We don't have a whole lot of time, so let me lay some ground rules. What always happens in a situation like this when we open it up for questions? Do people ask questions?
No.
They tell stories. We'll listen to your stories later at the bar. Don't hurt everybody with your stories. This is that police instructor I warned you about earlier where it might hurt your feelings. We don't want to hear your stories right now.
No,
If you have legit questions, we would like to answer those questions. If that story comes out in the form of a story and not a question, we'll just cut you off. Yes, ma'am.
What are some of the things we should carry? You said that, things are potential weapons. What should we have on us?
Have what you need for your daily, what you do on a daily basis. There aren't specific things unless you decide. There are some interesting things that you can carry, but it depends on where you're going too. Like pepper sprays, it's fairly effective close range. If you spray it, you're gonna wear it, but it will stop someone or incapacitate someone if you hit them in the face and eyes. Pepper spray is really effective. I hate this stuff. But there's places where you can't carry that. So if you frequent federal courthouses or you're going into federal buildings or other places where there's high security and you can't carry that, you're just not going to be able to carry that.
You need to have the mindset of anything I have on, I can carry, can use as a weapon, because it can. And are you comfortable using it? Do you know how to use it? Are you willing to strangle someone with your lanyard? If you're not, don't use it as a weapon. But if you are, use it if your life depends on it.
I've got another question right here.
If one were to come to the point in their life that, I am going to purchase a gun for my own self. Given the instruction you've just given us, that you really got to know the weapon and you really need to become proficient in the use of that weapon, I get all that and it makes sense. I mean, that's grounded me in that reality. My question is there
All right, so the question is, do we recommend any weapon over another? And you're referencing firearms. Okay, so here's my general rule for firearms. Is it comfortable in your hand? Would you carry it? And when you shoot it, does it hurt you or scare you? Because if it's not comfortable and you're not going to carry it and it hurts you when you shoot it, that's not for you. That's pretty much it. And don't get a Lorson.
Lorsons are bad. Don't get it.
If it costs less than $250, it's not for you.
We're going to invite Joe up right now and see if he can chime in and.
Excuse me, officer, I have a question. Someone has stolen the air out of my basketball and replaced it with air that's not mine. Can you arrest that person for that?
We can for air theft, and you need to put tinfoil around the ball.
Oh, yes, there you go. There you go. What we're trying to give you this morning, and these two guys are really good at it, is common sense approach to everyday difficulty that you will probably never face in your entire life. Most of what we're discussing this morning is going to happen to 0.005% of the people in this room, if it's that many. It is an unusual thing to encounter someone who is willing or trying to hurt you. You must be willing and capable of hurting him back. You carry a big pen, it's a hell of a weapon. Humans are fragile. You can stick that through his mastoid bone and he's dead before he hits the ground. That's behind your ear. Put it in his eye and drive it as deep as you can, and he's dead before he hits the ground. But you have to make that decision, that you are willing to defend yourself in the most violent manner possible as quickly as you can. Put the adversary down. Put him in the ground, because if you don't, he's going to do it to you. That's a choice you have to make. In advance of ever being faced with it, what would I do? You better think about that, because you might have to someday. And hopefully you won't. And the likelihood is enormous that you never would be faced with that choice. But give it some thought. Remember something else. Criminals are not clever. They're cunning. There's a difference. They're like a wolf that circles the herd. They look for the young, the old, the weak, and the inattentive. If you're stumbling down the street, which you see this all the time, you're doing this. Because, of course, this is the most important thing in the world. You're in contact with a situation room at the White House, and they need your advice. Or maybe you need to bring home a gallon of milk. Maybe that's it. But anyway, here you are, okay? What do you have a sign over your head? It's neon, it's 8 feet high, and it blinks, and it says victim. And wherever you go, that sign's over your head, because you have this thing that you cannot live without in front of your face. I was in Washington, D.C., a 20-something girl, well-dressed, obviously business person or government employee, steps off the curb doing this in front of a city bus against a light. The guy locks up the bus, blue smoke from the tires. It looks like this guy's going to have a stroke behind the wheel. He almost kills her. She gives him a dirty look and continues to walk. I said, we need to kill her before she breeds and produces another one just like her. Okay? It's called Darwinian selection. You know? There are certain people that just need to be eliminated. But don't be that person. Don't be the one that walks around doing this. Don't tell people, excuse me, I'm an idiot. I have no idea what my surroundings are. I have no plan. I have no clue as to what I'm going to do.